Old Dominick Distillery is a family-owned craft distillery located in the heart of downtown Memphis, Tennessee. The distillery offers a range of spirits, including vodka, gin, and bourbon, in addition to their newly released Tennessee whiskey and bottled and bond Tennessee whiskey. Old Dominick's flagship Tennessee whiskey is a unique blend of corn, rye, and malted barley, aged in the heart of downtown Memphis, where the hot and humid summers and cool winters work their magic on the barrels over time. Old Dominick Tennessee whiskeys are available now in Tennessee, Missouri, Arkansas, and Mississippi, with additional state distribution coming later this year. To learn more about Old Dominick, visit their website at olddominick.com to find out where it's available near you, or check out their online retailers to have it delivered straight to your door.
With Liquor Barn, you can shop your favorite bourbon, that perfect bottle of wine, or discover something new. To place an order for pickup or delivery, download the Liquor Barn app, visit liquorbarn.com, or call your nearest Liquor Barn location. Follow us on social media and subscribe to our email list for all the latest news on products, promotions, and events. Liquor Barn, where Kentuckians go to celebrate life. Cheers!
There's a new award-winning 4-grain straight bourbon whiskey that's been taking the market by storm, Penelope Bourbon. Bottled in historic Bardstown, Kentucky, Penelope's balanced yet flavorful taste profile comes from a unique blend of 3 bourbon mash bills. Currently available in multiple expressions, Penelope is remarkably smooth and flavorful. So whether you're sipping neat or using it in your favorite cocktail, Penelope is the perfect choice for you. Penelope's full lineup is available in select markets as well as online. Visit penelopebourbon.com to learn more and to find a store near you.
Welcome to the Bourbon Life Podcast, your source for all things bourbon. Join your hosts, Mark and Matt, as they drink and review bourbons, share news about upcoming events, interview the who's who in the bourbon world, and, most importantly, bring you along for the fun of living the bourbon life. Now, here's your hosts, Mark and Matt.
All right, everybody, welcome back for another episode of the Bourbon Life Podcast. I'm your host, Mark, and with me tonight, live here in the Bourbon Life Studios, it's my good friend, my bourbon and rye drinking buddy, Matt. Matt, how you doing, man?
Hey, Mark, I am doing super. How are you doing?
I'm doing even more super than you are.
You're doing super?
Yeah, man. Spring is sprung here in Central Kentucky. Beautiful day. Ready to have some fun tonight, man. This is going to be a great show. I've been looking forward to doing this, and I've been thinking about this one probably for about 2 years. I'm just happy that we're finally able to make it happen. But before we jump into that, I do need to thank all of our sponsors. We are the Bourbon Life Podcast, presented by Old Dominick Distillery. Thank them for their support. We also want to thank all of our other sponsors for everything that they do for us. They make this show possible, so we want to thank them for what they do in terms of doing that. Matt, with that said, man, let's just jump right into the show because we got a lot to cover tonight.
Absolutely. So let's set the scene. It was episode 15, May of 2020, when we last had our guest on, and he's brought someone with him. So we have got the boys from Nashville Barrel Company, Mike Hinds, the CEO and co-founder, and also James Davenport, the mix master and co-founder, joining us on the Bourbon Life Podcast. Gentlemen, welcome to the Bourbon Life Podcast this evening. And Mike, good to see you again.
Yeah, same. Thanks for having us on, guys.
Yeah, thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah, James, I'm thrilled you're here, man. You're like the added bonus, the unexpected added bonus. It's like you cannot turn that away. So when Mike said, "Hey, James is going to join us," I'm like, "Yes, that's great," and we're thrilled to have you, Mike. It was almost 3 long years ago since we last had you on the show, and I've seen you several times since then. And it's just one of those things where like need to get you back on the show and keep thinking we need to get Mike back on the show. So I'm happy that we're able to make that happen again. The last time you were on the show, you sent us samples. One of those samples was a rye whiskey, and Matt and I spent about 10 minutes telling you how wonderful that bourbon was. Yeah. And then we realized as you were smirking the entire time that it was a rye whiskey. So this time we picked our own samples.
That's right.
If I do recall, you guys picked up on it. You started going, "Hey, there's some rice spice in there," and I was like, "Yeah, there's a little." I recall, but in your defense, that was a bourbon drinker's rye. It was more sweet and caramel than spice.
All right. Well, still 3 years later, it's still left an open sore.
Yeah, I'm not saying we're much better, but we're at least 3 more years down the line here.
Oh yeah, no doubt. So guys, I'll tell you what we'll do before we jump into the conversation. Let's talk about what we're going to be drinking because we're going to have 4 different things poured up tonight. So this is going to be a lot of fun. Matt actually brought the first bottle to share. So Matt, why don't you tell us what we got poured up, and then you guys can, Mike, you and James can kind of jump in and tell us what it is. But Matt, tell us what you brought.
All right, this is one of my absolute favorites that I've had in my collection, and I need to go out and seek another bottle here. As we get to talking about it, it's got me remembering that. But this is the Nashville Barrel Company small batch rye whiskey. This is batch number 2 of a duet of ryes. So I'll let you boys tell us a little bit more about what we're drinking.
Yeah. So you're drinking the second small batch that we did. We actually have not done one since then. Not for any certain reason per se. We started doing cask batches for the retail side. But what you're drinking there is actually a blend of 5-year-old and 8-year-old 95.5 MGP rye, proof down to 100 proof. So you're getting a lot of complexity with that 8-year-old, along with 5. Actually, I mean, most batches of everything is 5 or under. So, I mean, our youngest is typically more towards the older side of what people put in their batches. But in that batch that you're drinking, it's 5 and 8-year-old 95.5 all the way through at 100 proof. And we actually, when I did that, that was more for the drinker side. If you're not a rye drinker, this is going to be super easy. Bourbon drinking side of things, but for a rye.
Okay, Matt, what do you pick up on it, man?
I love this one. I absolutely love this bottle. The nose on it has got all those really great 95.5 characteristics that I pick up. A lot of the mint, spearmint, get the herbal notes and grassiness, the peppercorn. There's some caramel. It's a nice play of both the 5-year and definitely the 8. The 8 brings a lot more of those older base notes, more of the oak, more of the caramels, more of the richness to it. But that 5-year brings the playfulness, the young notes, like just the kind of green herb notes and the freshness to the nose as well. This honestly, I'm a little disappointed that you haven't been blending up anything else because this is such a hit for me.
Yeah, I agree, Matt. This is delicious on the nose. I get almost like a little bit of a black tea from that. I'm not sure if that's coming from the younger rye or not, but the mintiness, like you talked about, comes through as well. A very nice blend of 5 and 8. So now this was only the second one that you guys did, because most of what you guys do is you do single barrels pretty much, right?
Yeah, primarily we were a single barrel. We're known for our single barrels. So that blend right there, that small batch, was kind of our foray into really getting a staple product on the shelf, really into the restaurants. They love 100 proof. So that was kind of James's, coming out party of blending and all that. And he knocked it out of the park with that one.
Yeah, the mix master.
Yeah, absolutely nailed it.
Yeah, definitely. So guys, let's kind of jump back. Mike, it was so long ago that you were on the show. So I think it's going to be good to kind of go back and revisit, talk about your past, talk about your experience, what you did before, and then kind of how you got into the whiskey world. James, you as well. So if you guys, whoever wants to go first, we'd love to hear about your background and how you both got into the whiskey industry.
Yeah, I'll start off, and then, our paths actually cross. So when they cross, I'll let James kind of take over from there. My bourbon journey started, in the 2008, 2010 range, where I actually, started collecting Jack Daniels. I started drinking Jack Daniels, and, being here from Nashville, every time friends would come in town, we'd go to the distillery. After, really kind of getting that bug of loving Jack Daniels at the time, I started going off and collecting and buying up old Jack Daniels and just trying to really get my arms around everything that was that. Kind of really got sucked into the community and ended up becoming one of the largest Jack Daniels collectors. I was like, at one time, I think it was like number 4 in the United States. I ended up having so much Jack, I got a collector's license years ago to try to deal with it. So anyway, I was doing a lot of Jack Daniels, and then it was almost like, baseball cards or comic books. When I kind of collected everything, I was like, well, what other whiskeys are out there? I remember in 2012 or 2011, a local liquor store called me up and said, "Hey, Mike, we've got this new Jack Daniel's release, and do you want it?" And I'm like, "Absolutely, I'll take 4 cases." And I show up, and he was like, "Hey, do you want any of this?" And it was Pappy and Eagle Rare and all that. And I go, "No, man," because at the time that wasn't on my radar. So after I started collecting a lot of Jack, I then started, when I collected everything, I started going off and I'd go to every liquor store and I'd buy a bottle of whiskey that I'd never tried before. So I would get up in the morning on the weekends. My wife would go with me. We would drive to Chattanooga. We would drive, and I would literally stop, and I'd buy everything and anything. I really just wanted to taste other whiskey. I then started kind of getting, wrapped up in single barrel and barrel proof stuff. This was in 2013. I started driving up to, the distilleries and buying the Evan Williams 23 or the Willett 24s from the gift shop. It kind of came, I was just chasing single barrels, and fast forward a few more years, I kind of got tired of the thousands of bottles of whiskey I kind of accumulated. I'm like, now what do I do? And then, some tragedy hit close to home a few times, and I was going on a barrel pick, and a buddy of mine, was supposed to go with me, and he ends up not going because he's in the hospital again with cancer. So at that time, I was going to do a Russell's pick, and I was like, man, dude, it's cancer had affected a lot of people close to me. So I decided to dedicate that first Russell's Reserve to raising money to fight or for research for cancer. So I picked a Russell's Reserve, and I sold it above cost and raised, $10,000 for a cancer research, which was great. And then realized really quickly that a lot of people kind of related to the passion of raising money, or everyone's been affected by it. So I started doing a lot of single barrel picks to raise money, and that's kind of ran into James.
Yeah, very well said, Mike. That's how we met. So I was in retail when we met. A little backstory before that interaction. I was in the Navy on a submarine for 5 years, came back home to Nashville, Tennessee, realized I had to get a job. So my first job getting out of the Navy was a nighttime closer at a retail liquor store. That's what I started doing. Ended up working into general manager, opened my own store here in Nashville. In that process, I met Mike along the way, saw what he was doing, raising money, doing good for everything. And realized that, we could probably work together, some way, shape, or form. It doesn't matter, whether running the barrels through or, getting access. I mean, mainly he had more access to it than anything. But we could run those barrels through my store. We could also work the charity side on both sides. So,
right.
That's one thing that really drew me in with Mike at the beginning. He was raising money, doing all this for charity. And so, next thing you know, doing a Russell's pick, him and I, with a few other people, we go and do one of his F cancers that he's very well known for. And we ended up leaving Russell's that day with over 10 barrels. 2 of them were F cancers. I mean, and so that's one of the things, and it did so much good for something that means more than what we do every day, if that makes sense. Sure. I learned a lot of that from Mike. I'm not going to say I wasn't about charity. I just was a little younger and dumber and, figuring out my way in life and realized what he was doing and what it went for. It meant a lot. And, we actually started hanging out after that. And the next thing you know, we're here. Easiest way to say it.
Yeah, that's basically that's like the Cliff Notes if you were gonna cram for the exam. That's
we're gonna have the Nashville Barrel Company exam at the end of this. Everybody, please be prepared for that. So, Mike, I have to admit that Matt and I are convinced that you actually are Batman. Because just everything that you're into, and nobody has ever seen, as far as we know, you and Batman in the same location at the same time. So Matt, yeah. Batman, so we're, yeah.
Batman's a lot shorter in person. I just want to throw that out
there. Wait, you're talking about Prov. Hold on a second.
Yeah, exactly. And for the record, I am definitely taller than Prov. We actually have in our.
That's a fact. There's photos, everything. That is 100% fact. I'm only saying that outside looking in.
There's actually in our gift shop at one time for the first year, I used to, scroll through all these photos, in the retail shop. And one of them was a picture of Prav at my house, and we're standing next to each other. And so it was rotating through all of our marketing, and then it'd be a picture of me and Prav. And it would say, fun fact, Mike definitely is taller than Prav and have a little air.
He only recently took that off. Actually.
Yeah.
That was pretty recent. Yeah.
It was funny because last show that we did, Mike, I think you sent us a sample of that rye, and I think that may have been Prav's. I think that might have been his pick at that point in time, because it was one of the first picks I think you guys had done, and you were kind enough to send us. That was the one that we kept calling a bourbon, at least for the 5.
That entire run, we built our company off rye, which is pretty unheard of, right? Not many NDPs launch with a rye for the first year. It's most go bourbon, they'll proof it down to 80, give you something to drink. And I mean, we came out of the gate with 7-year barrel proof rye, and that was mainly because of James. It was ready. He's a rye guy, and that run won countless awards, and it just kind of shows that if you put good stuff in a bottle, good things happen.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And you got good guys. I mean, you guys are both good guys, Mike, especially I know just dealing with you. And, we met the first time up there at Wilderness Trail, and you were kind enough to invite me along. We got to go into the warehouse, and James, that's when they had that 15-year-old Willet barrel in there. James, so we got to drill that, and I was just like in heaven. So ever since then, Mike, you've been on this pedestal of bourbonness for me, man. Is
that a short joke in there somewhere?
Well, I got to put you up there so I can look you right in the eye. Okay.
There you go. No, once again, I think that's kind of, when people walk into our retail store or for an experience or for a flight, a lot of times they'll get to see me or get to talk with James, and they can see kind of how authentic we are. I mean, we came from the bourbon community, and we did this because we love bourbon. We love the community. We love sharing our passion. And it really shows with everything we do. So, I encourage anyone that's in Nashville or coming to Nashville, come by, check us out. It's a whole vibe here that you're not going to get anywhere else. And you can kind of see that, this place wasn't built by, a hedge fund out of, New York or California that just sees dollar signs. We walk in every morning trying to figure out what can we do to make sure that the customer gets the best experience.
Yeah, and it is a great experience. I've been there several times and absolutely love it. And Mike, you were there one time and took me around. You were kind enough to do that. I didn't anticipate it. Didn't even know you were going to be there. But you just took the time out of your day to say, come on, and let me show you the barrels. Let me show you where everything's done. Spend some time with me, and then suggested the bourbon that we're going to be drinking here shortly. But definitely good. So Matt, let's talk about this, the small batch rye that we've been sipping on, because we're going to jump into the straight rye, this single barrel too, here in a minute. So what do you think on this small batch?
I love it. I think the nose really plays through on the palate. For me, it has a lot of those minty herbal notes. Get that spearmint, like a nice lemongrass, thyme, kind of all those like really nice spring, fresh summer herbs as well. Then it's got just this oily mouth coating, oily feel to it. A little bit of sweetness coming through, like some orange marmalade or like a orange or tangerine type flavor to it. But then backed up by, I think, that older rye again. Nice caramels, good vanillas, that big, bold, oaky flavor as well down the line. Nice and spicy peppercorn. It's a hit. Absolutely a hit. One of my absolute favorites.
Yeah, it's funny, Matt, because it's only 100 proof, but I guess maybe the combination of that proof point plus that rye kind of tricks my palate into thinking that it's a higher proof rye. Just that the warm feeling, the tongue, the tingle, the warmth in the palate. But it is good. I mean, I can't add obviously any more descriptors than what you've already put out there. So James, you're the mix master. So how did Matt do on those tasting notes?
I mean, he actually nailed it. So when I was doing that, coming from the retail side for the past decade before this, you gotta meet the crowd on a sense when it comes to tasting and everything. So when going into blending, I try to think of that, but I also don't blend just for the masses. But sweet is pretty universal, especially when it comes to rye. And our ryes are more bourbon drinkers' ryes. So in blending that, I was trying to hit, even if you're not a rye drinker, I wanted you to be able to taste this and be like, oh, this is something I can enjoy. I can at least approach it before you get into our cask strength or barrel strength stuff. So, like Mike was saying, our 7-year-olds, we launched with rye. And that is some of my favorite stuff in the house, no question. I mean, I will fight tooth and nail on that. But there's a good reason, because it's what's in the bottle. And, at that time we launched, we had 7-year-old rye. We also had 7-year-old bourbon. The bourbon wasn't ready at that time when we launched. The bourbon needed a little more time. And that's why we launched with rye, because off of taste, that's where it was.
Yeah.
So that's one of those things that, I really don't look at, certain, I guess, call it names or, factors of that sense. I just care about what's in the bottle. So if it's good, it's good. It can be 4 years old. If it's drinking to where it should be bottled, we will bottle it. We have not bottled anything at 4 years old. Actually, the youngest is 5 years. But if it's ready, we will bottle it. It doesn't matter who, what, when, where. It's about what's in the bottle and the product that comes out of it.
Yeah, and that's great, because obviously you're concerned about your consumers. You want them to enjoy what they're getting. You're not just putting something out there to say for the sake of putting something out there. You want it to be something that people are going to be able to enjoy. But I mean, a 7-year-old rye, I mean, there are 4 and 5-year-old ryes out there that are absolutely delicious. Mm-hmm. So when you're getting that 7-year range, I mean, that's pretty significant age on a rye whiskey. So that's kind of crazy. You guys started out at that.
Now we're to 10, 11-year-old.
Yeah. Wow. Well, speaking of which, I thought we'd go ahead and do this. Matt, we'll talk about the nose on this one, and we can finish the rest of it in round 2. But this is a bottle that I picked up when I was down, and see, we're on video now, man, so I can show everybody the bottles. This is so nice to be able to do this. So this one is called the James the Godfather. This is 122.22 proof. This is a straight rye whiskey, single barrel from the Nashville Barrel. Obviously, I was down there a couple months ago, stopped in, did a tasting, just looking around, bought a hat, I think, as well. And then Meredith, who works down there for you guys, your brand. What's your official title? Community ambassador? Yeah,
brand ambassador, tour guide extraordinaire, just, run a house,
Yeah.
We're a small niche company, so we all wear several hats around here. She's actually finishing up with a customer up front right now.
Well, she's great. I always love stopping in there, because she's always she takes care of all the customers. She'll talk you through whatever level you are in your experience. She can talk to you at that level. She does a great job. So I was down there and sampling a few things, and I asked her like, all right, of all the bottles, which one do I have to get? And she instantly said, you've got to get this bottle. It's 9 years. Well, I'll let you guys talk about what it is, so everybody knows what we're drinking here.
So let me confirm, we're talking about the same thing.
Yep. Perfect. The 9-year-old, the James the Godfather.
Yes, so that's barrel 630. That is 95.5. It was actually right before that run turned 10 years old. So that run turned 10 in October of last year. So if I recall, we bottled it like mid-September. I'd have to look at the logs on when we did, but it was right before it turned 10. So this is 95.5. We've got 2 runs that are over 10 years old now. One's a higher proof run, and one's a lower proof run. This is the higher proof run. Now, when you get into this guy, I don't know if you said the proof on there, if people could see, but it's got a little bit to it compared to some others, but it doesn't drink it per se, especially when you're thinking of a barrel proof rye, because normally you think of rye and spice. This isn't all just spice in your face with the proof.
Yeah. It was 122.22, I think, is what it.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So 9 years. Yeah, you can tell you guys are big fans. So I'm happy Meredith suggested this one for me. And to be honest, I had not opened it. I was saving this because I knew that I'd have you guys on the show at some point, and I just wanted to wait so we could open this and drink it together. So I'm happy you guys have a bottle down there to share.
Yeah, we have that on our tasting bar. So, some of the barrels that we really love, we try to keep a case or at least a partial case, and it's at our tasting bar. So when people come in that are kind of unfamiliar or even familiar with the brand, and they, even though we could be sold out, they can still try it.
Right.
So, it's kind of a fun thing, come into a flight, try different people's single barrels.
And I bring orphan bottles up daily. I say orphan bottles, but when we're bottling, not at the end of the bottler, everything finishes full. So those split bottles we bring out to taste more type of thing. So you can taste something that you might not ever be able to get, unfortunately, but you can still be able to taste it at the taste more, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. Matt, what do you pick up on the nose? We'll talk about the nose on this one, then we'll take a quick break.
Sure deal. This is like everything that we were just drinking in the batch 2 of the Duet Arise, but amplified that much more. Yeah. It's the mint is that much more pronounced. The sweetness is that much more pronounced. This, I pick up a lot more of citrus, more like apricot stone fruit on the nose. There's more like leather tobacco, like a nice pipe tobacco type aroma on it. It just, nothing of the proof. At 122.22 proof, it does not nose anywhere close to that. It's so just delightful and really complex, and just everything we had before, but completely, like you said, completely just blown into out of proportions. Just great.
Yeah, and the color on it too. I mean, people can see. I love being able to do video, man. The color on this is, I mean, it's just gorgeous. It looks beautiful in this beautiful new Bourbon Life Glencairn.
Available at bourbonlife.com.
That's right. Available at the Bourbon Life. Yeah. Well, guys, I tell you what, let's take a quick break, get a word from our sponsors, and we'll come back. We'll talk some more about this, the James, the Godfather single barrel rye, and we'll move on into some other topics as well. So everybody just sit tight, and we'll be right back with more with Mike and James from Nashville Barrel Company in just a minute.
The Stave Restaurant is a bourbon lover's paradise right here in the heart of bourbon country. Located at 5711 McCracken Pike in Millville, Kentucky, between Castle and Key and Woodford Reserve, Chef Kyle Klatka prepares amazing food each day that features an elevated Kentucky-inspired cuisine. With a full-service bar, great bourbon flights, and signature cocktails, the Stave is the perfect place to catch up with friends after a fun-filled day of touring the local distilleries. Be sure to check them out online at thestavekentucky.com or at Instagram and Facebook at The Stave Kentucky. Three Chord's line of whiskeys embody the spirit of creativity. The whiskey is a true collaboration between producer and composer Neil Giraldo and master blender distiller Ari Sussman. The Three Chord team of expert blenders, coopers, and sensory professionals have developed a multi-step process they call Perfectly Tuned Taste. This process begins by carefully selecting the finest bourbon and rye whiskeys from Kentucky, Tennessee, and Indiana, and then blending them together. Find out more about the whiskeys and distribution in your area at www.threechordbourbon.com.
All right, everybody, welcome back for round 2 of the Bourbon Life Podcast. I'm your host, Mark, and with me still here live in the Bourbon Life studios is my good friend, Matt. Matt, how you doing out there, buddy?
Hey, Mark, I'm doing great out here. It's nice. Don't have to turn on the fireplace this evening. It's nice and warm here in Lexington, but cool enough in your basement, nice and comfortable. Or the Bourbon Life Studios.
The Bourbon Life Studios. It's not my bait. Come on, Matt. Make it sound official in the Bourbon Life Studios.
Otherwise known as your basement.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Matt. I appreciate that. But hey, we're drinking some great whiskey tonight. So even if you were cold, even if the basement is cold, or the Bourbon Life Studios are cold, you're going to be warm, right?
Definitely. No doubt about that.
But I should probably say we are the Bourbon Life Podcast presented by Old Dominick Distillery. We appreciate their support. We appreciate the support of all of our sponsors. And with that said, Matt, go ahead and tell everybody who we have with us tonight.
Absolutely. We have the CEO and co-founder and also the mix master and co-founder, respectively, Mike Hinds and James Davenport of the Nashville Barrel Company. Gents, welcome back for round 2.
Awesome, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for sticking around. We appreciate that.
my ride's not here yet, so
you're waiting on Uber. Will be there. Uber's at the bar with Uber's with Meredith at the bar, right, doing a tasting.
Yeah,
so.
She's distracting him out at the tasting bar.
Oh man, so that's great. So guys, this round, why don't we jump in and talk about Nashville Barrel? Because Mike, the last time you were on the show, you guys had really, just kind of started everything. I think you had just shipped out or just bottled some of your first barrels that you guys had done. So let's just kind of reel it back a little bit. You and James had met each other. You both had this passion, obviously, learning from each other. And can you talk about how that kind of morphed into and how you guys decided to move forward with Nashville Barrel?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's funny is that you keep saying the date of May in 2020. And I'm like, man, it's been 3 years since that.
Yeah. Cheers, man. Congratulations.
Cheers. Yeah. It's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
How
February.
Yeah.
At the end of the
Yeah.
year.
Yeah.
That's true.
It's amazing just how it's like time is flying. It's insane. So you kind of heard about how James and I met, and the kind of the cliff notes of how NBC started from where it is to now, and without boring you, is that James had mentioned we were doing single barrels of just other brands, and to raise money. As the bourbon boom started taking off, we really kind of felt the pressure, and he did, especially from the retail side of things, where you could walk into Russell's or Four Roses and walk out with 5-10 barrels. And then as the bourbon boom hit, they didn't know what to do. They started allocating barrel picks. And it really, almost overnight, you could feel the pressure on, wait a minute, are we still going to be able to do single barrel picks for charity? Are we able to do single barrel picks just as friends and groups? So that's kind of when I, had this crazy idea of let's buy just like a handful of barrels, and we'll like pick through them with our friends. And, it was so, like an elementary kid kind of thing, like we'll buy 2 barrels and taste them. And so these
that was my thoughts on it, honestly.
So yeah.
I get the taste.
I hate when I think of like what I want to do with my life, it usually revolves around like, hey, let's just buy barrels and taste them.
And I can tell you that I think our first purchase, was 10 or 20 barrels. And that was actually, was the bourbon? It was
14.
14 barrels. Yeah, you're
actually,
right.
And
it's funny you say that, because we actually have something we're launching next week, and we'll talk about that later. But the first one we bought were 14 barrels, and then we bought another 10 or 20, and those were the ryes. And the ryes came in, and instantly James opened it. He goes, "These are fire. We need more." This is before we had even sold a thing, or we didn't even plan on selling it. We were just using life savings at this point. And James had to trip up north for a festival, but before we even could do anything, friends on social media reached out and go, "Can we come pick a barrel?" And we're like, "Yeah, I guess." So the first barrels, people came in and they're like, "These are amazing," and they were like, "We want this barrel." So then I had to figure out how legally do you bottle and sell a barrel.
Right.
We had never done this before. We were not from the industry. Fast forward, we sold all those barrels, and we had to buy more barrels. And then it happened again. And I looked over, and almost to this day, James and I still have not picked our barrel from 3 years ago when we bought all these to do. Which is kind of funny. We picked them independently, but the whole reason why we started buying barrels. And we still haven't done that, as just him and I outside of NBC. So last time we spoke, I was actually working out of my condo. I remember because I had the shuffle whiskey behind me.
The beautiful wall of, and I'm happy we got the Nashville Barrel, because that's a beautiful facility, and I love the wall of barrels there. But your wall of whiskey, man, it's priceless. It's something else. Yeah.
Well, I mean, the insurance company could put a price on it, but I think it's. Yeah. So we were working out of my condo, and for the most part, we used a co-packer. We used a co-packer for a year and a half. And I remember 3 years ago sitting down at a lunch meeting, and a guy asked me, he goes, "So do you actually want to have your own spot in your own brick and mortar?" And I was like, "Not a chance." I'm like, "That's a lot of work. It's employees. Why would I do that when I can co-pack? I mean, get out of here." And 3 years later, here we are at our place. I've got a gift shop. I've got a music pavilion. There's construction going on behind me.
It was 6 to 8 months after that.
Actually,
Sorry. We're here now.
Right, yeah, it was.
So after that, Mike, I'm going to butt in right here. Mike gets an idea, and it happens. Yeah. So like where we're at now in our lounge area, there used to be a wall. This was a warehouse. Between the time that Mike had the idea, we talked about it, to the time the wall was framed and it was taken down, it was less than 10 days. Sorry, just random going feeding into what he was saying.
Because that's
something we
do it. That's how I operate. And that's, I think, part of the success, or a big part of the success of NBC, is that, a lot of people say, how did you do this? How did you and James pull this off? And my answer is, we just did it. And it's left foot in front of the right. But as James said, like I literally, it can be right or wrong, but I'll go, I want to do this. And within minutes, hours, days, it starts where, I don't stop and go, well, I don't know. It's like, how do I get from A to B? And I just do it. So, I think if you came by NBC and you were here a few months ago, you probably saw a lot of changes. Well, that was your first time here though, right?
The first time I was there was when you were there, but then the second time when I bought the James, the Godfather, you guys had already done the expansion there.
So you can see that it's constantly evolving.
Yeah, definitely. And see, that's what Batman does. He's a man of action and decision. Once he makes up his mind, he solves the crimes and saves the world. So there again,
you're not wrong.
Yeah. Well, that says a lot to you both. Says a lot to you both and to the brand about your authenticity, and you don't, why sit around and think and mull things over? Just be authentic, one foot in front of the other, do what you want, let the bourbon and the rye drive it, but you all are creating the brand, the experience, and it comes through as that authenticity. And I think everything you're talking about and you're saying right now completely leads to the character of your company.
So what you just said, that is exactly what I want people to think. Or when they think of us and our brand and what we do, to the T of what you just said, because that's what we want to be.
Yeah, and it's what we are. If you look at our reviews,
we are. That's all we've been, and that's what we
it's
do.
great.
Like,
it's great to see people kind of recognize it.
Like that's so great.
Yeah, because it's you can tell by our passion. This isn't a scripted, passion. We're like, you can tell that even as we sit here 3 years later. We're still excited about what we're doing and where we're going, and I think that's a fun place to be.
Well, as Matt's agent, you guys are allowed to use what he just said, but it's going to cost at least a 10%. No, I'm just kidding. So, Matt, let's jump back over to the single barrel, the rye, and let's talk about it in terms of the palate and the finish. What do you get, man?
All I got to say is, man alive, this thing is thick on the mouthfeel. Right away, it's got that thick, like, mint, creamy, butter cream frosting type sweetness right up front. Then leads to some honey with it. A lot of the oak, those tobacco notes, the mature flavors coming through on the palate. And I get this really nice habanero heat finish. It's not that big, bold, spicy peppercorn that we often catch on a 95.5. It's just like that lingering, natural kind of spicy pepper heat that I love. This is excellent.
Yeah. Go ahead, Mike.
So real quick background, the James, that one we put on the label, the James and the Godfather, and it's got two silhouettes. One silhouette is of James, and the other one is a local guy that, is kind of known on Instagram for, some of his whiskey collection. And they both came in and we did the James label on that because we had just come off winning the Best in Class in San Francisco for the best single barrel with a single barrel that was called the James. So we got back. James, who's a big rye guy, kind of picked that barrel with another local guy that's, has tasted numerous whiskeys and has a good palate. So you've got really two good pedigrees of Nashville behind that barrel.
Very, very nice. And I was just like I said, Meredith suggested it, said this, you're going to buy any bottle, that's the one you got to buy. So I'm happy I timed it the right way. And I'm happy that Meredith also suggested that one because it is delicious, Matt. I agree with you. 9 years old. And it's sold out, right? Is that what you said? So there's no more, but it's on the tasting bar. So anybody that stops in would at least have the opportunity to taste it.
We have a couple left in the library, and every now and then I'll bring a bottle or two down. Just because it's fun.
Okay.
It's fun sometimes for someone to come in that's a complete tourist and a complete whatever, and they'll buy a bottle and they'll go home that they have no idea what they really have, and it's kind of a treat. When you do that.
Yeah, well, that's really cool. Well, I'm happy to have a bottle, and I'm happy that I saved it to open tonight to drink with you guys, man. That's a lot of fun. So we're gonna move on to another pour. Matt, well, I'll talk about it since I have the bottle, and then I'll let you guys explain what it is. this is another bottle that I bought on another trip. Actually, Mike, this was when I was down there sometime last year. I don't remember when it was. I stopped in. You were gracious enough to show me around the facility, show me your bottling, show me all the barrels, did a few tastings with me. And then I just asked you point blank, I'm like, all right, Mike, I want to buy a bottle. Which one do I have to have? And you're like, Johnny Tsunami.
Look at that color in the bottle.
Oh, yeah. It's crazy, man. It's
no doubt.
Look at that color. I mean, once again, I would challenge you or anyone to grab any whiskey. I don't care if it's even up to 10 years old. That's just, that's a non-finished and put it up next to that on most of the qualities, and it will hold its own, if not beat it.
Yeah. And it's a 5-year-old. It's 125.20 proof. So, it's getting up there. Oh, one thing I wanted to say about that rye though, drinking it, Matt, I agree with you in terms, you get that rye heat, the kind of like that jalapeno or the habanero, kind of that spice that kind of creeps up on you. But it's not like an in your face, like some 95.5s can really have that punch that just hits you right in the face.
It's super rye spice.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Right.
Yes, sir.
Exactly right. And this, it did not have that one. And I will tell you, on the palate, to me, that single barrel rye at 122 actually drank. I hate the word smooth, but it drank easier to me than the 100 proof duet. It tasted like almost lower proof to me. I know that sounds weird, but I could probably get in a lot of trouble with that single barrel rye.
Yeah, it's got a good mouthfeel. It's got a good oily complex to it, and it's a damn good rye.
It checks all the boxes. I promise you that. That's why I base her name.
And you're a rye guy, so I take between you and Matt. I mean, we got the rye covered here, man. So
no doubt, James. When you launch your subscription program, I'm going to subscribe and just send me your picks all the time. These are excellent.
Man, I mean, I could figure something. Actually, we should probably talk about that.
OnlyFans /JD.
OnlyFans.
Well, actually, with that being said, what does pictures run with the bottles? Like, do we have to pair those? Or?
Oh wow,
it's a total joke.
Yeah.
What is it?
Boy.
I mean,
but is it
right? Yeah.
Is it really, or is it? You know what? I'm going to have to take a nice drink of cold water out of my beautiful Bourbon Life pint glass now. No, I'm just kidding. All right, guys. So let's talk about this Johnny Tsunami. I keep calling it Johnny Tsunami. It's called Tsunami.
Correct.
But Mike, I think you're like Johnny Tsunami. You got to get this Johnny Tsunami. So in my mind, I keep saying that. But the 5-year-old 125 proof. Can you guys talk about that one? Share information about it.
I'll start off. The reason why it's named Johnny Tsunami is one of our day one employees that kind of works right next to James in the back, does all the bottling, does all the samples. I mean, really kind of a jack of all trades. When barrels come in, we all unload them, and James and Johnny go through and they taste them all up front. And this barrel came in, and it's very rare that someone goes, "Hey, this one, I want my name on this one." So when you have an employee here that's been here for 2 years, it's tasted more barrels than anything, and he's like, "Dude, this is I want my name on this one." You know that it's going to be good.
Yeah, no doubt. Matt, what do you pick up on the nose? See, do you guys notice I always throw it over to Matt for the tasting notes?
No, you're good. You're good. That's part of it. Now I'm going to throw a little bit in on this as well.
Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry, James.
Going back to that, Johnny was day one everything through, and he's tasted just as much as we have to an extent. I wouldn't say he's tasted everything that we have, but he gets to see more than most. And he really doesn't, say, I want this or anything of that nature. But I also throw little tidbits like, if there's something that catches your eye, let us know. And this is one like he tasted and he immediately said, "Hey guys, this is something I want to put my name on." And of course he hadn't done one yet. So it really worked out, but that is one of our most sought after runs. That was only 5 years old at the time. That run turned 7 in May this year.
Oh, wow, man.
And we still have more of those that we're doing in our single barrel picks. It's actually one of our more sought after products all the way through.
Those on social media actually got the nickname Magic Fives.
Yeah.
There was a group of people on some of the boards that started calling that run Magic Fives. Because if you look at, and once again, I'm sure that we start giving your notes, it drinks more like an 8, 9, 10-year-old bourbon than it does a 5. Everything about it, if I wouldn't have told you an age statement, or if I wouldn't have been on the bottle, no one would ever guess it's that. So Magic 5 is what you have there.
Mike, if it wasn't on the bottle, I probably would have said it was a rye whiskey. Knowing
Yeah, true. We've done this before.
We've been down that road before, yeah. So I would probably been like, "This is a delicious rye whiskey, Mike." Thanks for sending
21% rye in that barrel.
This is 21% rye.
21% rye in that barrel. Yes,
okay, I was going to ask that, so that's good to know. Matt, I'm going to throw it over to you for your nosing notes, man. What do you pick up on this?
Well, if it weren't on the bottle, I would have guessed that this was maple syrup.
Yeah,
it is
Yes.
so sweet and bold and just like unapologetically maple syrup and sweet and delicious right on the palate. Then it's got kind of this smoky paprika note that comes with it, a little bit of brininess, and like this sounds really kind of weird, but it's almost like bacony type note of like this really unctuous, briny, kind of thick, like just meaty note that balances out that maple. But then there's also a little brightness too, like a little lemon or just a little something bright to kind of cut through all of that, the rich nose that it has. So this is absolutely delightful.
Yeah, you just made me hungry for breakfast. I think I want like
no doubt about it. This is like
this is a breakfast pour, right?
This is Nashville breakfast.
Yeah. This if you had handed me this, seriously, Mike, if you'd sent this to us blind, I would have said that this was a finished bourbon, that it was finished in some type of secondary, either like a heavily charred oak or maybe even like a rum cask or something like that. Just from the sweetness that comes up. I mean, when Matt said maple syrup, it's like, yeah, I mean, that's the first note that was predominant, but but you know, I get like almost like a leathery note as well, which is kind of weird. I mean, at 5 years old, I don't think of those types of notes coming off of a 5-year-old bourbon. So when you guys got these barrels, are they aged there? You guys are aging them in your facility?
So yeah, actually a little history of those barrels. We bought those barrels to blend for our small batch when they were barely 3 years old.
Wow.
Okay.
So we got samples of those. Actually, when we first started buying barrels, back in the day, got samples, said this tastes really good. At the 3-year mark, looks like it can get better. So we kind of jumped in on that point and bought a few of them. I say a few, it's actually more than a few, but we bought because we thought the projection was going to be good. A fun story, actually, when these came in for the first time, Mike happened to be out of town and I was receiving the truck. The truck came in, and one thing with these barrels, they're top bungs. So sometimes the heads dry out, whatever. Well, unloading them off the truck, we have to tip them over. So they're leaking, the bungs will leak, the heads will leak, all that. So I'm getting them off the truck. They're barely 5 years old. Bungs are leaking, heads are leaking. We got to turn them up so we don't pour product on the ground, right? Well, doing that, we got to do quality control. I make sure whatever's in there. Yeah, exactly. So they just came in, they were barely 5. Quality controlling, tasted, it's like, damn, this is pretty good. So I thought it was going to be batch. Like I planned to blend these, do all that. I was like, this is pretty good. We had another one. The bung wasn't right on. We had to rebung it. So we tasted that.
The bungs were perfect. Don't let him lie. He just wanted
the bungs right on. Anyway.
Mainly when I'm not here, the bungs are all bad.
Yeah. They put those left-handed bungs in there. You want a right-handed bung? Yeah,
it is what it is.
Terrible situation.
Left-facing horse,
like the left-facing horses, yeah, Mike.
Yeah, exactly. Over here. No, they came in, tried another one, and I called them up. I'm like, dude, I got good news, bad news. What do you want? And of course, first thing, Mike's always bad news. Want that first?
Let's get it out of the way.
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing I've learned with Mike. And I was like, man, I don't know what we're going to do about small batch. And then immediately he's like, dude, we just got a truckload of barrels in. What are you talking about? I said, well, they're all single barrel. And so then he's like, okay. And we had to pivot.
Like we haven't actually, we brought those in to do our small batch bourbon. Now, as you said, we bought them when they were 3, brought them in at 5. Like, cool, blend those. To this day, we have not done a small batch 100 proof bourbon. That was like 2 years ago. They came in and we literally go, we put a couple of them in a cask blend, but overall we're like it would be doing them disjustice if we did that. So, one thing we do, we can pivot pretty quickly. And
it actually shows in these bottles now you're tasting from our 6 coming up here in the next few months. They'll be 7 years old from that run. But you can see that in our bottlings as well. Why we
so just curious. I mean, because I'll have to come back down there and definitely get a bottle. But how are they progressing in the barrel? I mean, now they went from the 3 that were good, the 5-year-old you got them. I mean, this is great.
It's probably our most sought after thing.
Okay.
I mean, they're just amazing.
When we put those in blind, sometimes with other older stuff, I don't care if it's Kentucky or even MGP. If you put them at 6 and you have some 8 or 9 year other stuff, 90% of the time that run's gonna just smoke it. It's they're a lot of fun. The one thing James is kind of his task to do is keep an eye on them, because you can see at 5 how much barrel influence these have. So, sometimes, on other products, you're like, hey, let's see if we can't get this to 9, 10 years old. Some of these ryes, you really want to see what the barrel can do. These are getting so much barrel influence so quickly that there's a good chance that these will never see 10. And it's not that it's we bottle it when it's good. So, there's no plan of self being, I want to see these at 12. I mean, at 12, these things would probably be tandem and
100%. I mean, probably what y'all.
Well, yeah. I mean,
Tsunami,
looking at
that
again,
right could not have gone 10 years.
Yeah, look at that.
No,
that barrel could not have gone 10 years. So that's one of the things we got to play in a factor. Yeah, I mean, at 4 years old, I mean, we probably could have bottled some. We didn't. Mm-hmm. I mean, that right there at 5. Now those are 6, almost 7. I mean, we're going to take them out to where they need to be, but there's a certain time where you can overage or over oak. I don't care what you call it. There's a turning point, and we're trying to stay ahead of that.
Sure. And these are Indiana barrels, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Low rye mash bill.
Okay. All right. That's what I thought. Well, guys, I tell you what, we're at the end of round 2. So final thoughts though, Matt. Wait, no, we're going to talk about the palate in the next round. I'm all confused.
We're going to do the palate in the next round already then.
Yeah, we'll do the palate in the next round, and we'll talk about the next drink as well in that next round. I think that'll work.
Perfect.
I think we can do that. So, guys, let's take a quick break. We'll be back with more with Mike and James from Nashville Barrel Company in just a minute. From our good friends at the Stave comes Lexington's newest hot spot to meet up with friends, have fun, and eat some great food. District 7 Social is a social and beer hall, but it's a lot more than that. Located in Lexington's Distillery District, it's the home of Lexington's first duck pin bowling lanes, and it also features a self-serve beer wall. That's right, self-serve. And if you want more, they've got it. You can try one of their delicious cocktails from the bar or order some great German fusion food from their on-site eatery, Germanish. So what are you waiting for? Be seen, be social. District 7 Social. All right, everybody, welcome back for the third and final round of the Bourbon Life Podcast. I'm your host, Mark, and with me live tonight in the Bourbon Life Studios, Matt, is my good friend, my podcasting buddy, my bourbon drinking buddy, Matt. How you doing, man?
Hey, Mark, I am doing great. And listeners, we are so appreciative of you all joining us, whatever time of day it is, morning, night, evening, afternoon. Thanks for being here with us.
Yeah, definitely. And I should
Mark,
say we are
doing all right?
Yeah, and I need to say we are the Bourbon Life Podcast presented by Old Dominick Distillery. We appreciate their support. We appreciate the support of all of our sponsors. Matt, with that said, you want to tell everybody who we have with us tonight?
Absolutely. For the third and final round here on the Bourbon Life Podcast, we have shed one of our co-founders, but we still have with us Mike Hinds, the CEO and co-founder of the Nashville Barrel Company, NBC. Mike, welcome back for the conclusion here.
Thank you. Sorry, guys. James's Uber showed up, and mine isn't here yet, so we'll see how much longer I have.
He may be the first guest we've actually ever lost. We joke about that every week,
he's
Mike.
The first one we lost.
During that break, he's like, I just can't take this anymore.
We lost the mix master.
What? Every one of our listeners says that too.
Definitely. So we are drinking on right now this single barrel bourbon, the Tsunami, that comes in at 125 proof. Matt, let's talk real quick about what you get in terms of the palate and the finish on this one.
So the palate on this is not as upfront like maple syrup as the nose was, which I think though I would love to just be drinking like a glass of maple syrup, I think that actually does quite a bit of justice for it. The nose was so delightful and so sweet and rich, but the palate on this comes through with a lot more different flavors that aren't like just straight maple syrup. But I get a little bit more of the corn is coming through on this. This is what, 21% rye.
Yep.
So is that 75% corn on that recipe? 70.
Yeah, 21.4. So yeah, 21,
Okay.
74.5.
74.5. Okay. So yeah, a little bit more corn comes through, a little bit more that corn bread, a little buttercream frosting on it as well. But then there's that richness. It definitely drinks like an older bourbon, that's for certain. But nice cinnamon, nice spice, and like sweet cinnamon sugar, cinnamon toast on the end. But also a little brightness and a little heat from that pepper from the rye come through too with it. It's just for 5 years, it's delicious. It's complex, and
There's layers,
like you were
layers on
saying,
layers.
yeah, like you were saying, Mike, I'd be hard pressed to find a darker
Yeah.
looking, richer 5 year, 6 year, 7 year bourbon than this.
Well, Mike, I have to say thank you for suggesting this one to me when I was down there. Next time I come back, if Johnny's around, I'll give him a hug for for picking such a wonderful barrel. And I'm happy. This one I had opened and taken just one little drink out of, but again, I was kind of saving it. So I'm glad that I had the opportunity to do that and drink it with you guys. Now, Mike, I mean, we talked earlier. We talked about Nashville Barrel. You got all these different expressions. You had that small batch rye that came out. But you've also got another brand that you have that's available. You talked about it, I think it's online and they're in your shop. Can you talk about the Nash Tucky brand?
Yeah, so we launched Nash Tucky, probably 6 months ago, something around that age. And the reason Nash Tucky came out is, I spent a lot of time in Kentucky, and before NBC, I was always going to Kentucky to pick barrels. A lot of the guys from Louisville come down to Nashville very often for shows, dinners, the airport. Besides Tennessee and Kentucky sharing a border, there's a lot of the, our morals, our ethics, a lot of the things. We're sister states, and there's a lot of similarities in Kentucky and Nashville, or Kentucky and Tennessee. So Nash Tucky was kind of launched as, kind of a celebration between the two states, and more specifically, as popular as Nashville's become, a lot of people from Kentucky come down. So a lot of the juice is primarily, and all the juice actually in the special release, which is the black charcoal label, all that was Kentucky distilled whiskey that was brought down, aged in Nashville, and bottled in Nashville. So the Nashville component of that really is the bottling and some of the aging or in here. There is a blue label and a purple label that has an Indiana component, but for the most part, most of the release has been that charcoal label that really kind of celebrates the Kentucky spirit.
Gotcha. So I'm just kind of curious, what was it that made you say, you thought, hey, we just need to do this little special type of release to pay homage to this relationship between Kentucky and Tennessee? Was that kind of the driving force behind that?
It is, as we kind of progressed in our brand, there's things that over the last, you say 3 years, man, there's as a company that we are literally came from the, consumer side and connoisseur side. We didn't really have anyone on our team that came from a previous brand and the spirits of building it. So some of the things that we've done, we're kind of improving on past stuff. So, Nashville Barrel Company means a lot because we're from Nashville, and the barrels, we will sell any kind of barrel. We didn't want to limit it to, specifically, but you really start kind of realizing that, Nash Tucky, by just the phrase, says so much.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah,
it really does. It's you can almost piece together at least some of the concept. Well, that sounds like Nashville, Kentucky, and that's exactly what it is.
Well, so will that be a continuing line, or is that just a kind of a one-off thing for you guys?
No, it's definitely a line.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a line that we actually have distribution here in Middle Tennessee.
Okay.
It's available online. If you go to NashvilleBarrelCo.com, then go to shop. A lot of groups are doing private barrel picks of it. It's one of those that will slowly take it outside of Tennessee. We're still trying to get our bearings on distribution with Nashville Barrel. We're learning a lot with that. So Nash Tucky will be next to follow.
Gotcha. And you mentioned the fact that, you do other things, other spirits, other things. We do have something else poured up that we're going to drink. We usually just do 3, but this is a special episode because we're doing 4. This was a bottle that I bought, Mike, because your suggestion. Once again, this was at Grains and Grits down there in Townsend, Tennessee, which is a great event. If you're in Tennessee, even if you're not in Tennessee, man, if you get the chance to go check that out, that's a lot of fun. Tennessee-centric, Tennessee-focused distilleries, a lot of great chefs, a lot of great food down there. Mike, do you know how long they've been doing that event?
Well, we've been doing it for the last 2 years. I think we've been doing it a couple of years before that.
Okay, because I've been the last 2 years, and big shout out to John Edwards over at Dad's Drinking Bourbon because he hooks me up with tickets for that event. But Mike, I was there. I got the chance to talk to you, and you're like, "Man, have you tried our agave spirits?" I'm like, "No, I have not." You gave me a pour, and I was like, "Okay, just take my cash take my money because I need a bottle of that." So yeah, so I've got that bottle here, agave spirits. You want to talk? Well, this one's 100 and looks 109.74. It looks like. So do you want to talk about this, Mike, and what you guys are doing with this agave?
Yeah. So we really believe it. That the barrel has 80+% of all of the influence on the spirit that's in it. Right. I mean, there's. At the end of the day, that's the barrel and the char that you're getting a lot of the flavors from. About 13 months ago, we wanted to take some tequila or agave and barrel age it in some of our favorite single barrels. So your Tsunami that you had, or the Rye Father, or the Godfather. Once the barrels are empty, we try to repurpose them. So we searched high and low and ended up at a NAM in Mexico and bought pure 100% Blue Weber agave.
Okay.
So what we decided is, we will bring it in. We'll bring it in totes, and we will barrel age some of our favorite empty barrels. So once a barrel's dumped for a whiskey barrel, we then, as it's still, before it dries out, we'll throw in 30, 40 gallons of agave and let it keep sitting. So we call it agave spirits, and it's mainly because, is it tequila? Absolutely, it's tequila, but it's bottled outside of Mexico. So we go with just the agave spirit side. We're not trying to fight the cartel. So there's no, every decision we make here, it's, is the cartel involved? If so, then go the other way. So the agave is 100%. It's sweet. And what we did is, in our classic fashion, we decided to bottle it without watering it down. So as you were saying, Mark, it's 109 proof. So it definitely lets you know it's there, but it will still drink, I'll say more approachable than some 80 proof, tequilas that you could find on your shelf.
Yeah. Matt, you know what? I know it's tequila, man. So I'm still going to throw it to you.
Yeah, I know. And I am completely out of my wheelhouse here.
Yeah, you are. That's
not
okay.
one much for tequila. So I'll do my best here, but I think I'm actually going to throw it back to you, Mark, once I'm finished.
Okay. That's fine.
Right up front, I picked up like it smelled to me kind of like oats, like oat and vanilla. And then like the weirdest kind of nose of like vanilla yogurt for some reason came across to me. But now as it's sitting around, getting a little bit more air in the glass, kind of some smoky notes are coming across to it. A little bit of like green cactus flavor too as well. I know it's agave spirit, so maybe I'm just kind of making that up to try to sound like I know what I'm talking about. But anyway, Mark, I think I'll throw it to you on this one.
It's funny, Matt, because you were talking about oats and vanilla, but to me, it's almost like a butterscotch type of an aroma on the nose. And it's funny because when I drink tequila, because I love tequila, I don't have a lot of it, but I try to buy some decent stuff. And to me, I always get like almost like an earthy aroma to tequilas, peppery type of aroma as well. And there's subtle hints of that in here mixed in, but I'm guessing, and I don't know, because this is not. What'd you say, Mike? This is which kind of blue?
100% Blue Weber agave. So all tequila has to have at least 51% agave in it. That's
right.
Like Mexican. That's a rule. The other 49% can be additives. It can be coloring. It can be other yeast and sugars. almost like, an MSG, if you will, a lot of other stuff. So we have no additives in that. Agave by default or by nature is a sweetener, right? There's agave is a sweetener. So that sweetness you're getting is literally just 100% agave.
Okay.
The vanilla and smokiness is pulling from the barrel. One thing I get is, buttery and cream. It's, and that's kind of, from the agave. So fun in a margarita, fun sipping on it. It's a great sipping tequila. And a lot of people keep asking, why don't you call it a reposado, or why don't you, use all these tequila terms? And my answer is simple. I'm not trying to sell tequila. I'm trying to kind of show, the barrel effect, and I'm trying to appeal to the whiskey drinkers, not the tequila drinkers. The tequila drinkers already have, their mind made up. This is a cool sip for someone that likes bourbon to kind of introduce them into agave or tequila.
Yeah. And you do rum as well. I don't have a bottle of that, but you guys have ventured into rum. It's kind of curious to me that because you do bourbon, you do rye, you guys are killing it on that. So what was it that made you say, hey, you know what? Why don't we jump over into agave and let's do some rum as well?
So part of it is just kind of experimenting and having the ability to kind of play, right? So a lot of these things, like the rum, it's 8-year rum. We bought it when it was 4. So we've literally been aging these even at our co-packer before we got our brick and mortar. So some of this was just kind of having fun with the barrel and the barrel company. It was really just kind of trying to see that without going too much, without jumping the shark.
Gotcha. Jumping the shark. I love it. Fonzie. Oh, that's a great reference. So Mike, we talked a little bit about the facility down there. You built it. You weren't planning on doing it, but you did it. And you've already expanded 3 years. You guys expanded. Can you talk a little bit about the facility? People that come in, what they can expect, what they can do when they come in to visit you guys?
Yeah, so we're 2 miles from Broadway. So we're, if you're downtown and experiencing the circus that's called Broadway and all the honky tonks, and after you've burned yourself out on night 1 and you're looking for something a little more low key, we're literally 2 miles. We have a tasting bar where, you've met Meredith. We also have David and Sterling. We have some guys that really are passionate that you come and do a flight and you get to pick, from any of the single barrels that we have, and they'll walk you through it. You really kind of, figure out what you like and try to pour something that we think you'll enjoy. We also have experiences where you can book them online. We do premium tastings. We do a mock single barrel experience. We built out the lounge so you could come in, get a flight or a cocktail, and just sit around and talk bourbon or whiskey or just, whatever you want with, your friends, or you're making a pre-date spot. And we're actually opening up our music pavilion in May. So on Friday and Saturdays, you'll be able to come up, listen to some live music, look at the skyline, and have a cocktail.
Yeah. Hey, Mike, just remind me and our listeners, what's the name of that new music entertainment complex?
It's called The Rucker.
Oh,
yeah. Your royalty check in the mail, Mark.
That's how you know you've arrived in the whiskey industry, right? When they start naming facilities.
That's going to be your story for the end of time.
That's right. You're going to hear it on every episode of the Bourbon Life Podcast.
I'll let you have it.
I appreciate it. I'm just curious. What's the connection to the name for the facility?
So there's, it's behind. It's literally in the back of our property, but there's a very, very small road that dead ends at it, and it's called Rucker Avenue.
Oh, and I didn't steal that sign.
I know,
man.
You missed your opportunity. So we felt that it was really cool to kind of play homage to where we're at, and as I said, we love everything about Nashville, so it was pretty easy. That's my cover story, Mark. It was really because of you.
I appreciate that very much.
We
But it was
the
cool.
whole street for a cover story. It's.
You just wanted to get back on the podcast. I get it. It's okay. I appreciate that.
It worked.
Yeah, it worked. When I was down there and was talking to you, you actually walked me up the street, showed me the facility. It was just gravel, some wood, not much up there. Last time I was down there, I drove back up and it was pretty much completed. I mean, the fence was up, but you could still see everything. And like the first time you took me up there, you're like, you can see the Nashville skyline, and you can. It's such a cool place. You wouldn't expect that. but you've got such a great view from where you are. So that's going to be a really cool location, man. So you're going to open that in May?
Yeah, we did a couple charity events late last year. We did a couple corporate events, but today actually the speakers went in, the PA system, the wireless mics. I mean, TV's next week, so we're really aiming for a 1st of May or the first weekend in May to have it open for the summertime.
Very cool. That'll be nice. Speaking of corporate events, I mean, you do things, you have opportunities for businesses and corporations to come in and do things as well. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, our big bread and butter and kind of how we launched was doing single barrels with custom logos on the bottle, almost like I think you might have
Mike, it just happens that I do have a bottle with my picture on the label. My wonderful sister-in-law who lives in Nashville sent you an email or called you guys up, and you all graciously helped her get that for me for Christmas.
Yeah, it's a great bottle. It's a one of one. So we beyond custom one-offs, we do a whole lot with everything from hotels to construction companies to to charities or to anything where they'll come in, they'll pick their own barrel, we'll put their logo on it, and then they leave with it the same day. A lot of these bottles behind me. Every single one. But,
now we've lost all of our guests. First.
So once again, this was a Nashville display. That was a local sign company.
Okay.
They came in and for the holidays and gifts. There's a good buddy owns a farm. He does cows. So all walks of life realtors, they'll come in, they'll do a barrel pick for their company. They'll use it as marketing, and it's a great tool to retain customers.
Yeah. The company I work for, I'm going to have to see, because I do have a real job besides this. That could be a great opportunity. And they're based down in Franklin. So, hey,
there you go.
Might have to try to make that happen. Matt, you want to jump back to the palate and finish, or do you want me to talk about what I get on it?
Why don't you lead off on this one, Mark? Because you're a little bit more experienced again.
I'm really not, but I do like to drink tequila. And this is obviously an agave spirit, like Mike said. That sweetness, man, that is something else. If you hadn't told me this was 100% pure, I would have been like, okay, somebody has added something to this, because it really comes across with that sweetness. But the barrel rounds it out. It kind of takes the edge off a little bit. There's not that earthy pepperiness. You get a little bit of smokiness that I think probably, maybe comes from the preparation of the agave, the piñas themselves, in the initial stages. But it's a very fun sipper, and I would love to put this in a cocktail and see how it mixes up as well. But again, coming in at 100, I say 109. Yeah.
Proof. Yeah.
109 proof. I mean, again, everything I've had tonight, Mike, except for the 100 proofer, everything else seems to drink well below what the proof is, which is great. So I'm really enjoying this, and this is something I could just sip on, and I've done that with just tequila, reposados, like you said, añejos, just to enjoy it in a Glencairn. But this is one that would be right up there that I could just easily sip on it at night. Matt, okay, I'm going to ask you if you want to throw something out there for your notes.
All right. I get a sweetness that I can only kind of like compare to juicy fruit gum. It has kind of like a bubble gum sweetness to it. A little bit of smokiness as well, I think, coming through from that barrel influence, and some vanilla down the line. But that's kind of as much as I'm able to get. Again, This is just not my
I get it, not your jam.
That juicy fruit, though, it really kind of does. It hits home. There's a little kind of that aftertaste of that first stick you put in.
Yeah, but I still get that pepper. I love that pepperiness that comes from tequila. There's something about it, and usually when you're drinking just a tequila, it's right up front. This one, it's not. You get that sweetness, but then that taste of pepper just kind of creeps back in. So, Mike, we're close to the end here. So before we wrap it up, though, what's been the best part of this journey for you so far?
Someone said to me a couple weeks ago, they said, have you even stopped to realize what you've accomplished? And I was like, because I'm always, another guy today told me I needed to be on Ritalin. the guy was dropping off some wood, and I was like, man, I just don't have time for you. I'm juggling 8 things. And he saw me bouncing all over. He goes, Ritalin would really help you out. So, one thing I think that, the best takeaway so far is, try to stop and really appreciate not only what you've done and accomplished, but really try to just stop and smell the roses. You kind of get caught up in that rat race. And to be honest, when you just said it's been 3 years, that really kind of took me by surprise. Believe it or not, I was like, it was really 3 years ago, because time flies. So I think you start, one thing I think I'm really taking out of not only this journey, but this podcast for sure is really trying to enjoy it.
Well, that's awesome, man. We appreciate that. Any big news, anything going on that you want to share that's coming up with our listeners?
Sure. So, Nashville Barrel, as we kind of mentioned earlier, our first barrels we ever purchased were actually 14 bourbon barrels, and that was 4 years ago. We brought them in, and it's time. So we're actually releasing them under a completely new label called the Founders 14. So it's all 14 single barrels. They're all individually bottled, so it's not a blend. It's 14 different single barrels, completely different label called the Founders 14. And we're really excited because it's kind of, full circle.
Yeah, that's awesome. So when are those be coming out?
Probably in the next week or two. So, I'd say,
okay.
We're by the time this goes live, it should be pretty close.
Yeah. Okay. So I have to text my sister-in-law.
Yeah, for real. Just get her my bank account information.
Here's my Venmo.
So we're gonna release one at a time, and they're actually 8 years old. They were the first barrels. And it kind of just shows that as a young company, we were cash strapped, and instead of putting out product that was it was good but not great, we sat on it for 4 years, and it kind of just shows that. Other companies will buy barrels, and they just instantly put a label on it and turn it around because that's what you do. Not us. So 4 years later, the first bourbon barrels, or the first barrels we ever purchased, period, are finally going to be for sale. So it's kind of awesome. It's kind of a fun moment.
Yeah, no doubt about that, Mike. So where can our listeners find out more information? Where can they find you if you want to share that? On Instagram, where can they find more information about Nashville Barrel Company?
NashvilleBarrelCo.com. Obviously on Instagram, or Nashville Barrel Co. I tell everyone, all of our special releases, everything we do, we put it on social media first. If you're in Nashville, 2 miles from Broadway, come check us out, and we'd love to show you around.
Great. Well, Mike, we really appreciate it. Any final thoughts before we wrap it up tonight?
I just want to thank you guys for having us on, and I appreciate you supporting the journey.
Well, we appreciate that. Matt, final thoughts before we get out of here.
Mike, it's been a great second round with you here, having you on and seeing everything that's happened in the last almost 3 years since you were on before, and just the authenticity that you bring and the product that you have and just your passion for it. It really shows in the finished product that we've had here tonight. And I really can't thank you enough for what you've done and what you're bringing forward. So your character, your personality really shows in it. And I think the company reflects well on what you all are doing.
Well, thank you for having us on, and appreciate you keeping up with us. And I guess in 3 more years, Mark will.
I was just going to say, as I'm wrapping it up,
put it on the calendar. Put it on the calendar. We'll see you in
we will not wait 3 years to do this again, Mike. I promise that won't happen, man. I'm excited for you because, like I said, I met you back in 2019. You were just such a genuine guy. And the things that you've done in the industry, the fundraising, the charitable stuff that you've done, the work you do, it's really impressive. And you're very humble about that, Mike. And it speaks volumes about the type of person you are and your character. So people that don't know you, they should get to know you and the brand that you're working with in Nashville Barrel, what you guys are doing. You're doing a great job down there. You're very authentic. As Matt said, you're very transparent as well, like Matt said. So I highly respect that, and just think you're one of the great guys in the bourbon industry. And I appreciate the fact that that I know you, and that you're always so gracious when I get to spend time with you. So thank you for that. Thank you for joining us again. And I promise it won't be 3 years before we get to do this, before we do this again, Mike. But with that said, we are the Bourbon Life Podcast presented by Old Dominick Distillery. Thank you, Old Dominick, for your support. We appreciate that. We appreciate all of our sponsors, everything they do for us. We appreciate you, our listeners, whatever time of day it is. Like Matt said, whether it's morning, noon, or night, whenever it is you're listening to us, we appreciate you spending some time with us. Hope you enjoy the show. If you want to reach out to us, please do so. You can find us on Instagram at The Bourbon Life, also on Facebook. Please join our private Facebook group, The Bourbon Lifers. We're actually rocking and rolling in there. We're having a really good time. A lot of activity going on these days. So it's a lot of fun. So please join us in there. If you want to send us an email, you can reach out at thebourbonlife@gmail.com. We would love to hear any suggestions that you have, positive comments. Even if you have something negative you want to share with us, if we can improve, we want to hear it. If you feel so inclined, leave us a review on your favorite podcasting platform, and we just appreciate all that you do for us as our listeners. With that said, I'm going to wrap it up, send us home with our tagline, which is, may your glasses always be full, and may you keep on living the bourbon life.
Thank you for joining us for this week's episode of the Bourbon Life Podcast. Our mission at the Bourbon Life is simple, to share our passion for all things bourbon with you every week. And we'd really love to hear your thoughts on how we're doing. You can find us on Instagram and Facebook at The Bourbon Life. You can also contact us by email at thebourbonlife@gmail.com. And you can always find us on your favorite podcast platform. If you have a moment, we'd love it if you would rate us and give us a review. So until next week, we hope your glass is always full and that you keep on living the bourbon life.